What happened to you?
That's the first question. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello from the Hope Alone family. Mom and Dad. You know, Dad's turning 85 in December. So Andy, Morty, and the whole crew, you are got the best, have taught the next generation, and Danny, I think, it's even the generation after us because I'm getting old. But this is a lesson of 50 and volleyball doesn't go. So I have to learn that lesson. My wife reminds me on a daily basis. But I'm not going to give it up. So I did my rotator cuff, both of them. Blew him out on one play. Guy was 6'5", smash. I stopped it. I got the point, but this is the run. I had surgery less than 2 weeks ago, but this is more for the guys who like to smack you on the back and say, how you doing? Because I really can get out of this now. I'm like ready to go. But I just wanted to say hello. Thank you to the board and everyone for asking me to come. It has been an honor. I can't believe we're coming out. All of the elected officials, pretty much 90% of them will be out of office soon. Almost all your Queens Council members. I have the privilege of serving with Karen and Rory, who your elected officials are our elected officials. So the beauty of that is your club, my club, like the Queens Democratic Club, the Jefferson clubs, all the clubs that are within Northeast Queens, we share what we were brought up with, and we fight for those values. So this club, believe it or not, now more than ever, this clubs from Astoria, Contaminant, they are so important. And the reason why I come is to let you know that we share the same exact values. So my district is the largest council district in the city. It goes from College Point all the way to Nassau County. So you can be on the Cross Island Parkway for a half hour and still be in my district. Every time I'm in the car with the kids, I'm like, yep, still in the district, still in the district. My dad's like, all right, Dad, you had it easy. From Astoria Park all the way to the airport. I said, you can handle that. But College Point, Flushing, Whitestone, Middlesex, Douglaston, Bayside, Auburndale, that's all in District 19. Right south of you guys. So our Congress members are the same, senators. Dan and I share College Point. A lot of chaos going on at College Point these days. That's why Dan's walking out the back door. Good time to go on. But I get to chair, prior to being chair of Economic Development Committee, which has been amazing. So Speaker Corey Johnson is the leader of the City Council. He appointed us chair of the EDC committee. Prior to that, you saw me a lot at Quicka and Queens Boulevard with Melinda with the senior projects. I was chair of all the senior centers in the city. Prior to that, I've been an elder law attorney for almost 30 years. So my mix was a perfect blend of where I wanted to be in council, because that's what I'd always done. So fighting for our seniors, fighting for quality of life, security and safety, and schools. It's always been about that with the Vallones. So wherever happens in the next 6 months, because we don't know, right? Whoever's going to join races, whoever's going to declare for whatever, I give you this advice. You know us, you know Morty, you know the board, you know what we've always fought for. We've never changed on an issue. I've never tweeted some new exciting thing of the day that just to get a nice retweet or some new exciting platform of the day. I've never turned my back on those we've always stood with. Who we are is exactly who I will always be. And I think, since we're at a crossroads, and you saw how hard our new county leader, Gregory Meeks, as your Congress member with Grace, fought to keep at least the district attorney's office in our hands going forward. That was such a huge race, because if it had gone the other way, Queens would have continued on this crossroads on a path that is not what's represented in this club. Democrats have always been Democrats. We didn't need to subdivide ourselves into 17 different categories. And that's what gave us strength. And that's what gave it what we brought up on. That's why New York State and New York City was always so powerful, because we were a democratic principled state in our cities. And anyone who came in and tried to do otherwise didn't learn that lesson. Well, things are changing a little bit now, and now all of a sudden you're not enough of whatever you are. You gotta be more this, you gotta be more that. That's not who I am. That's not who my father is, it's not who my grandfather was. What we have stood for, what you have stood for, is what I've always stood for. So as Dan alluded to with the Borough President race coming up, the reason why I'm attracted to that office is because I had the greatest teacher in the world. I still do. And what we've done in Northeast Queens can easily be replicated throughout the borough. And who our name is, and the trust that you build, you can't just say, trust me. You gotta earn that stuff these days. It's the old school What have you done? What do you stand for? And those who come before you, whether it's BP, DA, presidents if they come, Congress members, I always tell you when you ask those questions, what pieces of legislation have you put forward? What budgetary priorities do you stand for? Right? Because in the end, the reason why the council office has such a local input on all of our lives is because we control all of that city funding in the entire district. The mayor has not put one penny in our district, not one. The mayor has done nothing for the middle class and seniors in the city, not once. So who's it left to? It's left to us. So each council member has what, a $6 million budget? How do you allocate those funds? Where are your principles? What do you support? You can't hide from that, right? So those who come, and those are the type of questions that I always tell those, because look, I'll be out of office, no matter what happens with BP, because of the crazy 2 terms, you know, Dad always fought and said it should have been 3 terms, and now that I'm coming to the end of the 2nd term, I see where that makes sense, because you're on a roll, and we got things going, and now all of a sudden you gotta get out. And my district, if you remember who was in my seat before me, he was in jail. So my district was the laughing stock of the city, but what did that mean though? Even though we laughed, that meant the poor people in my district got nothing. They had all the money stripped away from the district, the precincts were taken away, the officers, the senior centers had no money, the schools hadn't gotten a penny. It was a disaster. The parks, you name it, my libraries haven't been touched in 40 years, I can't even touch them. Each one has a $25 million budget to fix. When I get 25 million. Borough President Katz, who will soon be the district attorney, really was the savior for us out in Northeast Queens, because what I would do and what we did so well, and that's what's happening here, is you partner up. So if you came to me with a project and said this senior center needs help, the library needs help, I'm a soccer coach. This is the reason why I really did this, because my son Charlie, just like I taught my girls for 10 years, I'm very active in my kids' lives. No job will ever take that away from me. So if you don't see me, I'm usually either with my wife or my kids, or with my dad, my mom, maybe a little bit more now these days. Those are my priorities, family, faith, and country. And you always keep that. Who talks about that anymore? Who talks about faith anymore in politics? Who talks about virtues and democratic principles, and loving the country, and supporting the police department, and middle class, and seniors, and veterans, and all of those quality of life issues that we grew up with are now almost negative concepts, which is mind-boggling. Trust me, I go down to city council every day and I come out wondering how I had any hair in the first place. But it's challenging times. But that's why I said when I like to come, because simple as bike lanes. We're opposed to them too, but who came into my district and thought it was a good idea to put a cement wall down Northern Boulevard? I mean, I have the worst bike lane in the hall. I actually have a cement wall from Douglaston Parkway all the way to my parish at St. Andrew Avellino. How is that safe? I don't even, my wife's not comfortable driving in the right lane because there's now a cement wall next to it. So what happens? You go a little to the left, and the person in the left lane goes into oncoming traffic. There's nobody even using the bike lane. We don't commute to New York City via bike. Long Island City, the story is different. You may actually go over the bridges to get there. But in my neck of the woods, providing some type of safe transport makes sense. But when you come in and say unilaterally, like the mayor's office did, because Polly Trottenberg wants to put her vision across the whole city, guess what? Queens drives. We have to drive. I don't have a train in my district. So if you have to drive, you can't just forget about drivers on the road. You can't just say, hey, go take a train, go take a bus. Well, I don't have one. And my bus doesn't take me where I need to go, so I have to drive. I can't drive now, but I have to drive. Those are sometimes the things that are forgotten. So in our clubs, and that's why I say thank you to you. Look at this great crowd. You have so many people came out tonight. That's not the case at all the clubs. Right? Even in our, if you don't have the right speaker, if you don't have the right leaders, clubs tend to die away, or they're fading. And then there's a void, an absence of leadership. That's not the case here. You guys got foundational leadership, and that was something that was really kind of missing in my neck of the woods. I had Republicans in office prior to me, so I came out in Northeast Queens and we turned the tide, and now we have all Democrats back. But not just Democrats, because as we see, it's a little bit different these days. Democrats who get along with each other. Right? I personally don't care what your title is, but if I could sit down and talk to you about what's going on in your house, your neighborhood, your block, I'm good with you. But if you attack me, that's different. But I never. They call me the smiling council member for a reason. I don't have a reason to be angry with you. make one, I'm going to fight for my district. That's where the Sicilian side kicks in a little bit, but that's all right. My brother Peter got that gene a little bit more than I got. He's much better than that at yelling when he needs to, or smacking around the volleyball a little bit better. My dad was the perfect arbiter of all. You could come in, sit down in his office, and when you walked out, he said, "What was that man about?" And he winds up, he's saying a prayer for you at church. He's going at retreat. If he's still giving out his card, by the way, retreat is on April 20th, you better come. Those are the things I grew up with. So now my kids see that in me. My wife and I, when I started that office on Francis Lewis Boulevard, it was us. My wife was cleaning the office, the kids had the lemonade stand out front, my father-in-law was planting the tomatoes in the back, and that turned into our council campaign office, and that's the only way I ran and won in District 19. You know, they thought, oh, you belong from Astoria. I'm like, no, I actually lived here 25 years. But you had to earn it. Dad always said you gotta earn it. So looking at what's happening next, because the borough president's race didn't just happen. I mean, Linda's victory, there's still a general election, by the way. She's going around reminding everybody. There's still a general election. That, once that's finalized, triggers a special election. And that's why Dan started off by saying the governor may move the other elections, because it doesn't really help us if we have to vote 3 times within 7 weeks. How the heck do you get people to vote? So, all right, you gotta vote in March, you gotta vote in April, you gotta vote in June, then you gotta vote in the general, September. People just turn it off. And you know how hard it is to get petitions, to get people excited about voting. It hurts the democratic process. So they should unite all this stuff. I mean, I'll be out in January trying to get petitions. You know how hard it is to get someone to sign a petition A? Imagine doing it when it's like minus 20 degrees and they get their milk at the lawn, and I'm going to say, excuse me, can you take the gloves off and sign a petition? It's a very archaic. It's a very archaic, and if it wasn't for me and Anna Marie doing it, most of the volunteers don't get that one. So I give you that. The most exciting thing that happened in my chair, and probably the things that define me separate from every other person that will stand up here, is the Amazon vote came through my committee. And when Amazon first was presented to the city, they had to have land use procedures to turn the land over. And understanding that one principle, they cut out the entire city council when the governor stood there with Amazon and announced this deal. They couldn't announce the deal without, like that. My dad the next day woke up and said, if I was a speaker and that happened, it never would have happened. Because I have to be at that, I have to represent and protect New York City. I have to say we are part of this transfer of this land. So mistakes were made from day one, but the overall impact to Queens and our community is where I was looking at saying, hey, I support this because it's generational change for our borough. And planning that was what was missed. Sitting with the local leaders at the Astoria houses in Long Island City and what the impact would be infrastructure-wise and the schools, all of that was missed. So instead of standing there with them, they stood there opposed with them. And then they backtracked and tried to get back on track, and it just spiraled from there. But leadership means acknowledging and knowing that's going to happen, taking those steps to make sure that should have never happened in the first place, and seeing the greater vision for our communities in Queens, saying, hey, we could work, live, retire, and pass on to our kids, never having to go into Manhattan once, unless you want to see a show. You could have had your entire career in Queens. You could have gone to the schools, had the job, and never left. How many people can say that now? And how many small businesses are actually thriving in it? How many mom and pop shops are actually saying, gee, I'm doing great. The city is helping me, and I've got all these loans, and I have no debt, and life is wonderful. No, that's not the story that's out there. So you take those things that we've learned, and when we do get to the point where I've said, you know what, I have my wife and kids to say, if this is the path we're going to take, you'll see me in front of my grandfather's school, because where else would I be? In front of the George Charles J. Vallone, that's my son's name there, for school in Astoria. And I would announce at that point that I'd take my grandfather's vision, my father's vision, my family's vision, bring that to Queens County, and say, in this time of uncertainty, you need leadership that you can trust, that you understand, and will listen to you and not divide us. I don't think anyone else that's seeking that office can say that at all. And they're very clear for what they stand for. And if you want that, that's your person. I would never say, Jeff against me, oh, people who are supporting Jeff, you better vote for me because Jeff's this, and this. No. Whatever Jeff fights for, or whatever he fights, is his passion. If that's your vision, you vote for him. And that's where I'm very different with you. I go up to you. I wish you the best. There's no reason for me to attack. And to this day, probably the one thing I'm most proud of being in elected office, I'm the only one, maybe in the country, that has never put out a negative piece of literature and never attacked anybody. I don't attack. It almost cost me some elections. It's real easy to make up lies and say all this horrible stuff, and oh my God, did he do that? If the truth is there, then you have to abide by the truth. But apparently I own like oil fields in Whitestone. What else do I have? All these things that have come up. I'm the devil with the developers. All this stuff that comes up, and I laugh at my wife and I. We got to the point with the kids. The things that always bother me the most are the children. Because when the things start crossing the line and things start impacting the kids. For example, Eddie Braunstein, our assembly member, was at a community fair last weekend in Bayside, and the protesters basically attacked him while he was with his 3-year-old son. I mean, really? Ed? I mean, it's like, Dan, these are the nicest guys in the world. I mean, to take that point where he has to be ushered off by the 109 precinct to get some safety and go home. Now, do you take your son back to a street carnival, a festival? That's where you have to worry about that? They didn't do that in Whitestone, because Whitestone would have turned that around into a 6 o'clock news story, but it's a little bit different. But, you know, that's not the community we grew up in. So that's unfortunately what the reality we have. So I want to turn that clock back a little bit and realize, hey, these are not the principles we fought for. I'm proud to be a Democrat, proud to grow up in the traditions that I knew, and it will continue. And like I said, trust can't just say, trust me, you gotta earn it. And today's leadership, sometimes that's what might be what's missing. And it shouldn't be about an issue of the day. And the police department is often the one that becomes the issue of the day. You never turn your back on those that keep us safe, our first responders. And everybody at 9/11 likes to show up, and if somebody's shot or something happens, everybody shows up, and then they have a hearing, and then they go back to where they were, protesting and walking across bridges and laying in front of my city hall with shirts against the cops. That's not the way you're going to have safety in our streets and our community. You work with the new community policing programs. At the 109, it's the precinct learned from day one. We brought that community policing first in Queens to 109 because we knew that was what was missing and what was needed to work with the leaders. And all of a sudden, tensions and things were gone. And all of a sudden now you can call your NCO officer on the corner, just like you have, to come and stand out front of this meeting and come to that civic group and come to the carnival on the weekend. The protesters, you can't really stop. So I'll leave that with you because I know it's right. First day of fall is on 97 days to Christmas because you know I'm a Christmas countdown. And the holidays are right around. We have our Jewish holidays are right around the corner now and throughout the year. It's to me the best time of year. Something between September and January 1st. We all kind of kick into this. We suck it up and get it all done, and we prepare, and family becomes priorities, and we prepare for these wonderful times throughout the year. To me, this is such a wonderful time of year. I enjoy it. I hope it lasts the whole year. Usually doesn't. Something annoys us on January 2nd, and we all go back to being where we were. But that was it. So for not seeing me all the time, if you have some questions for me, if you guys have, yes. Ladies first, then we'll come back. Susan. Oh, anytime I see paper and pen in your hand, I get nervous.
First, I want to say I used to work at the Gazette. I love your father and your brother.
So what do I say?
I like you too.
Thank you. I'll take it.
The question is, what did you do about the jail in Kew Gardens?
So the jail, and this is an interesting question because it's very tumultuous right now. It should be. I sat on the Board of Corrections for 5 years, pre-life as councilman. Board of Corrections is the group that oversees the balance between the corrections officers, the inmates, the detainees, the family members, and the laws of the city. And the first day on that job, you realized the saddest place in the city is Rikers Island. Because of the way, that doesn't mean, wait, let me finish. The saddest place, when you go there, you feel the sadness in that island. And it's not because of how they got to the island or what's happening. It's because the infrastructure that's there, the way it was created, it was all temporary houses that never became permanent, that they kept for decades, that had no heat, no air conditioning, had asbestos, had water leaks. It was a disaster. Then they asked these poor corrections officers to maintain it without any weapons or any safety whatsoever. They asked these poor families to try to make it there, and they asked the inmates to just deal with it. So there was never anything really there that you could say, We got that right. However, I'm the only one on record at this point to say it should be remain where it is, and we should not be moving it into communities. But that's almost like a political, no, I'm just saying, it's easy, and that's one of those things where when things get difficult, like homeless shelters and jails and stuff, to stand outside and scream and yell, but you still have to have a plan, right?
Right.
You just can't say, no, don't do it here, do it over there. And that's a part of leadership I understand. You have to compromise. You have to find a spot. So when this first issue came up, and there was no location, and it was just a matter of closing or leaving the Rikers, I said, day one, and nobody knows this, there was a $30 million budget that the mayor put in to fix the buildings on Rikers Island and renovate and revamp while you have the land. There's a ton of land there. Nobody knows about it because you don't really go there. And you don't have to impact anyone while you grow new mental health facilities, new women's facilities, juvenile facilities, and it continues on. Once that was scrapped, and then this panel was created, which of course, listen, if I put my 5 Vallone family members on a panel, do you think they're going to back Vallone? Yes, right? Well, maybe. It depends which brother you're putting on it. But yes, we would tend to bend each other. So these panels, I don't really trust because it's appointed by people or the mayor's, but the governor's going to put a panel, they're going to come up with whatever their boss wants it to say, right? So they came back and said, close it. And now you have all these advocates saying, just close all jails. Well, that's not going to work. Then there's folks that close jails, build small, wonderful new ones. Well, New York City, back when I was on the board, had over 14,000 detainees every day. We don't have that anymore. It's cut in half. However, the number that's at now, with the police department not arresting anybody, because that's what we want them to do, right? That's what leadership says, don't arrest anybody. Everybody's wonderful. There's no crime out there. But what do you think the person on the corner, there has never been in the history of our 45 years, Vallones have been in office almost as long as Morty's been in office. The Vallones have been in office for 45 years in a row in city council. No one's ever come up to me, my brother, or my dad and said, we don't want to be safe. No one. So if quality of life and safety is always paramount for where you live, your schools, your homes, you can't ignore it. So you can't turn your back on the police department. You have to make it better or make it work for that community. Same thing with Rikers Island. There's a reality that there's a certain amount of people every day that will go through whatever detention facility we have. The numbers that they're talking about don't add up. They don't have enough seats for wherever they're asking to build it, whether it's going to be close by here or someplace else. So then what happens then? What happens if there's a little spike in crime? By the way, there aren't really anybody sitting on Rikers Island anymore who couldn't pay $10 in bail. It's all lies. Judges now don't even put bail on anyone unless you do the murder, kill, or top crimes. The people who are on Rikers Island now are career criminals, recidivists, folks who have taken a turn for the worse. Those who should not be there, we have done our best now to make sure they don't wind up on Rikers Island, because that's not where they should be. If there's a program that we can rehabilitate and work with everyone to get back in the community, get on a job, that's exactly what we should be doing. But the world has bad guys. And what do we do with those bad guys? We have to have a plan. So it's a very volatile subject right now, and like I said 5 years ago when they asked me, I said, find me a community that's going to say, great, put a jail in.
Yeah.
No one, even what's happening. But you have to give the leadership. Karen has taken this and put her heart and soul to try to figure something out, and it's been very difficult for her. And she's our Queens delegation leader. She earned that too. Karen is one of those that have been here for decades. She's the only one that's worked with all 3 Vallones. She's been here forever, and Karen is working her hardest to try to make this work. So I feel for her position. It's difficult. It's easy for me to sit back in my district that doesn't have the jail and say, you know what, we're good here, don't put it here. That's the easy thing to say. But the reality is, this is a mayor and this is a political climate that's going to close that damn jail. So we have to figure out, well, if these guys are actually going to do this, what are we going to do? So I don't have that answer, and I don't know if this particular location is certainly the right answer. If they make it smaller, it's going to be more jails in other areas. I have a perfect area that's been overworked for years, College Point. Right, they're opening a homeless shelter there soon. College Point has burdened everything. Those in College Point are saying, once they need more seats, you're going to put it in our district. So, and then those in Astoria, folks in Astoria, like when I lived there, like, they're so tired of Rikers Island because the buses and the transportation have killed Astoria for decades. So now, should they have burdened that all that time? So no matter where you are, whatever zip code you're in, there's going to be a fire and a passion on this topic. JFK, exactly, right here. So Borough President, you have to understand that. You have to be able to work with those different communities and say, whether it's a homeless shelter, a jail, or something that no one's ever going to appreciate, it's not going to go away. But we have to figure it out together on the best possible location, the least minimal impact to the community, and prepare for it the best way possible. That's what's missing. Decisions are being made without us, behind the door. Listen, if they had come to me from day one in College Point, I've got areas that have no homes whatsoever. There's areas that are off of College Point that are just factories and targets and not near anybody's homes. We could have worked it out with services for the whole point of homeless services and families need to get back on their feet. You don't want to isolate them more. You want to support, provide, bring services, and get them back on their feet, back into the community. If you just stick a homeless shelter in the middle next to no trains, no buses, no hospitals or anything, that doesn't help them. Same thing with the jail. Remember, those who are family members who need to visit those at Rikers, and this is where understanding being on the Board of Corrections, it's a horrible experience for them too. You want the family to be there to guide them back and get there. If they have to travel all the way across the country to get there and go through scanners and never, it's a system that's really broken. It should have been handled very differently from the beginning from Rikers Island, where they had a facility, and no one's ever told us what they're doing with Rikers Island, which gets me skeptical in the first place. Why the rush to get it off? Are you building a bigger airport? What the heck are you doing? Right, so we have a right to be distrustful because no one's really told us. And us, now me on my side as a political leader, if you're not telling us, how can I possibly go back to my clubs and my communities and say, trust us? It's very difficult. This is not an easy question. And I commend Karen for her leadership. It's very difficult. Queens has always stood together until recently. Queens is separate now. There are pockets of Queens that want to see things burn and disappear and start off with a whole vision of a socialistic plan and somehow people think that's going to work. It's not going to work. It never works. City works on revenue that produces services for everyone. If there is no revenue, there are no services, period. If anyone's thinking in some other utopian mind that there's a world that works without money to fund these things, it doesn't exist. But unfortunately, some don't want to speak about it. So there's always a balance. And if the Vallones understood for anything, it's balance, it's perspective, it's understanding. So I think it's those difficult issues are the ones that will help define what that is. But I understand it might be easy for my district to say no and put a wall around it, but that means some other districts got to take care of it. So you have to figure that part out. Karen's trying her best to do that. She has worked tirelessly to try to figure this out because she is the Queens delegation leader. So we'll have to figure this out. Your voices need to be heard in figuring it out, and you are. Trust me, I hear it in my district from you, just like you heard my district with the homeless shelters. We all hear the bad, but sometimes we don't hear the good either. So there has been a lot of good over the last years. And yes, sir, you guys.
The new mass transit plan that they came out with $51 billion and
oh, and now we got to pay, I think, like $20 a day to go into town.
How do you, I know it's a huge thing, but you always said people in Queens have to drive because of whatever. And then they can say, well, you bring a toll in Manhattan. Queens.
Yeah, it's going to cost me $100 a week now to get to work.
And I'm not saying it, but that's bridge toll, right?
Well, with the new commuter tax, which basically is a Queens tax, right? Who else is coming in Manhattan by driving?
So is the new mass transit plan have hope of a better life in some way?
It's a disaster. You know, it needs to be scrapped and done over. When you look at projects, like bring back Amazon, because when Amazon was being talked about, there was an infrastructure factor of billions of dollars, new train stations, ferries, schools, hospitals. It was all there, but they didn't flush it out correctly. And that was the mistake. They kept saying, it's a good thing, it's a good thing. Well, you have to explain why it's a good thing. We were trying to do that. So through EDC, we chaired, but that was the hardest hearing I ever had to do. And my boss, Corey, was livid that day. And it's not easy when your boss is screaming and you're sitting there next to you, saying, okay, next question now. All right, but Corey's still screaming. Hang on, let's get that through. It's times it gets a little crazy. But mass transit, there are still transportation deserts. People like to throw that term out. I don't have a train. So if someone in all those brains that want to explain to me how I'm supposed to get to work, besides taking 2 buses to get to the 7 train to fit through 4 billion people around Peter Cruz District manages to survive getting to work on Main Street, to get to the 7, to take a transfer, to take a 2 and 3 down to Manhattan versus driving. You're gonna drive. And now all of a sudden, they wanna charge us $20 more. So remember way back when we had the commuter tax? This was back in Dad's day. Nobody complained about it. It was 37 freaking cents. And it brought in billions of dollars every year, and those idiots scrapped it. And they've been scrambling ever since to make up that money. And now who's paying it?
We are.
Never should have touched it. It's 37 cents. Yes, now.
Okay.
By the way, the Mets, Phillies lost today. The Mets are only 2.5 back. The Yankees are up 5-1. You can tell what I was listening to before I got back. Jets and Giants are disasters, so we're not getting
Here's what the Yankees, Wilson from Staten Island.
Yep.
2 of my questions were asked. Let's go to my third question. Does Polly drive to work, or does she take? Or does she
Now you're
ride
saying
her bike?
Polly, as everybody knows, that's Polly Trottenberg, the New York City DOT commissioner, who's really not quite sure what's going on in Queens. But
Now,
apparently she went to College Point and now thinks she rode a bike around McNeil Park and thinks it's a great idea to put a bike lane on College Point Boulevard. Has anyone seen College Point Boulevard? College Point Boulevard can't even move in either direction. She's going to put a bike lane. I want to see, it's going to be hell when she drives. But she drove the bike around, well, she used the bike, and she thinks that is a good thing.
out of the 50+ city councilmen, how many would you say think Polly and all the policies are nuts? Do motorists have any rights in the city?
None whatsoever, Miss Mayor.
So, right,
None,
so in 2
absolutely
years,
none.
will we get our rights back? Are we gonna get some normal people in?
Well, you know, and these are the type of things you want candidates, pretty soon that's gonna happen too. Forgive me for leaning, it's been a long, my arm is really starting to scream at me right now. Those are the type of questions that, whether it's mayor or president, governors, presidents that are gonna come along. And that's why I think your council office is so important, right? What's gonna fill these next seats. It's really only the council office that touches all of this. If Congress, is any money coming from Congress into our district? Is anything coming from Albany into our district? Is anything coming from anywhere here? No. Council? Yes. Borough president? Yes. This mayor? No. So we really need strong leadership locally to make up for that. Driving can't be forgotten. It just can't be forgotten. You've got 2 million people plus in Queens, and many of us drive. And the city is always going to have a need to get from one spot to another. You have districts like mine where you're not getting to get your milk and your groceries unless you drive, because there is nothing 2 blocks within my vicinity. So you have to get into a car. You can't forget that. That's why I say there's always a balance between everything. Remember, the Mayor Kane took this office saying a tale of 2 cities. He's created 2 cities. He ran on an issue that he said he was going to fix. And all he did was determine in his mind the one part of the city he wanted to work for, forgot the other part. That's not creating one city, that's cementing 2 complete different cities. That will create us to fall if that continues. If you continue to pit the middle class, seniors, veterans, and everyone else who's worked hard their whole life to be the American dream, we're all immigrants. We all started as immigrants. God bless every immigrant that comes in today, but at some point my grandfather came with $8 in his pocket and did the same thing, and we worked hard, and we got to where we were. You don't just scrap that and throw it out the window. There was a dream involved. What's the dream now? So fighting for that, the cost of living right now and trying to figure out, and my kids cannot buy a home in my district. No one who gets married anymore can live probably in the homes that we purchased. So then where do they go? What type of housing is available? In my district, if you don't get a co-op or a condo, you're not getting a home unless you inherit it or you come overseas with millions in your pocket. There's no other way to get into those homes. It's a very difficult time. Seniors can't afford $1 more taken away from their DREE, their any type of social security, any type of benefit to stay where they are. Affordable housing is staying exactly where you are, not losing it too. You have to maintain where we live. Because if you lose that, there's no place else to go. I don't have one senior affordable housing project in my district. And the one that I brought with Hannock, and everybody knows Hannock, and Hannock is the greatest partner in the world in bringing senior affordable housing, they protested. They protested it. And sometimes I wake up and how do you protest senior affordable housing? So it just goes to show that people will fight over everything and anything now. and they will make you scared. And through your fear, they get you all worked up, and they talk about things that aren't a reality. This is going to kill the neighborhood. No senior affordable housing's ever killed anybody's neighborhood, ever. It provides a stay to go. What happens with mom and dad? What happens with my wife and my boss? What happens? Where do we go? Where do we get our assisted living facilities? Where do we get the facilities to stay in our home? How do I stay in my car, my apartment, my home? What type of assistance can the city give? When has the homeowner of a 1 or 2 family home ever received any help? Those are things. I'm sorry, guys. It's one last question if you have it. Then we'll yes.
I got 2 quick questions.
Oh, you had to throw in a second. Yes,
I ride a
ma'am.
bicycle a lot. The other day I was driving down Queens Boulevard, okay?
Queens and where? Because Queens Boulevard goes
down
across
to
the
the
whole.
expressway.
All right.
Okay, from the Queens Boulevard, from like Richmond Hill, Queens Boulevard, Hillside Avenue, down to the expressway.
That's a very.
And the way back, I didn't see one person on a bike lane.
No.
I ride a bike a lot. I think this bike thing is ridiculous. Okay?
I get the connecting, I get the idea behind it, but you just can't arbitrarily throw them down and put them in such a way that they create one group more bad than good. I mean,
They're all over the place. They're ridiculous.
and where bike riders do enjoy to bike ride, those places should be protected. But we know our neighborhood better than anyone. So this group should be providing a list of areas that should be able to connect it, not Polly who's sitting in Manhattan to come out here and say, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ride my bike one day in your district and put a bike lane, because, no. There's a reason why you didn't see anybody riding bikes on College Point Boulevard, because nobody's riding a bike
I've been
on
on College Point Boulevard. You can't move on there.
When there's one delivery on College Point Boulevard, the whole street is backed up.
Why don't we put a boat to Rikers Island, like just close the road for a change around? That's my only question, that's it. And that to me is a little too stupid.
You know, it's probably similar to with Amazon, right? They quickly pushed it through. Because if, similar to probably with Amazon and bigger decisions like these, the quicker you push it through and get a vote, the less opposition you're gonna have to. Right? I mean, if even in my council, I'll get a 12 o'clock email saying we're voting on something tomorrow at 10 on a controversial bill, horse carriages, pick whatever controversial bill that's coming up. Why has that happened? To minimize the opposition. If I gave 3 weeks notice on it, I had 3 weeks of hell before the bill came up. So there's reasons, not that any are good, but when you have those tough decisions to make like that, if you isolate the community and don't involve them. However, I gave you my example of my senior center. So if somebody's going to protest even something as a senior affordable housing, leadership means I have to make that call and put it in anyway. Sometimes you have to say, I need this in my district. This opposition, I don't get that one at all. There was opposition to a high school at some point. High schools are tough sells because it's for kids throughout the whole community. And now under this school chancellor, who I've said from day one should be gone. Gone. The school, he's representing values that do not represent the city. And he's made us feel everything is color and racist, and it's not. This city is not a racist city. This city is an amazing city. And we've learned to work together. My child who grew up with us does not see colors. He sees love, he sees friends, he sees people. That's what we should be putting in our schools, not what he's forcing our teachers and schools to do. And it's not, and then again, it puts us against whoever, us and them and us. You keep dividing the city. You can't divide, you have to unite. If anything I can say tonight is, nothing's easy. If we work together, we'll figure it out. Leadership has to be earned. I thank you for letting me to come out and hear our voice. But it's I guess, a little comforting to know there's voices not too far away that are the same voices as yours, have the same values. We still are fighting for them. There's a lot of opposition out there. And they like to make it seem like we're divided. We're not. But we have to come out and vote. You guys did again this summer. You're going to have to do it again. Whether it's me or anybody, it's not about me anymore. It's not about any particular one person. It's who's going to lead this county and your community into the next decade where you can go home and say, okay, we're in good hands. And you got to make that decision. That's what it comes down to. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.